This is Sound Business. I'm Denny Grimm. For the past 24 years, Sound Business has been interviewing CEOs, top executives in business and industry. Today, we're going to focus on transportation and logistics. We're with Mike Regan, the CEO of TranzAct Technologies. And Michael, I want to jump right into the fray. You represent a lot of companies, both on the carrier side as well as the shipper side, shippers large and small. And one of the things that they've been looking to you for is your annual prediction. A year ago at this time, you made some predictions which were really on the downer side of what was going on in the marketplace. You were predicting a recession. In fact, you said we were in a recession when all others were saying business is good. Why don't you take us back to yesteryear? Talk about what it was that got you to the point where you were saying that we're in the middle of a recession or beginning of a recession, and then take us through the year to let us see where we are now, as well as then how here in 2009 we're going to be moving forward.
Great. Well, first of all, Denny, thanks for stopping by. It's always a pleasure having you here at TranzAct. And consistent with your comment, we'll jump right in and say, for several years now, we have been issuing our what we call our crystal ball outlook, which basically takes a look at the upcoming year and what shippers can expect, what we're seeing happening. When we started TranzAct 25 years ago, one of the things that we have done throughout every year is to look at the data. And we always get around the table and say, what is the data telling us? Well, what the data was telling us as we looked into the crystal ball last year, last November, 07, early December, was that we had seen a drop in freight value. And so we put 2 plus 2 together and said, we're not going to look at what the government statistics are telling us. It was our conviction that back then we were in a recession. And I remember being interviewed by one of the editors from one of the leading industry publications. And when I told him that, he basically said, Mike, that's not what the government's telling us. And I told him, I said, Paul, I really don't care what the government's telling us. I'm telling you what the freight numbers are showing, which is that we are in a recession. And so consistent with our belief, and we've seen this over the 25 years, Denny, consistently, that basically if you want to see where the economy's going over the next 3, 6, 9 months, take a look at the freight that's moving through the system. So we got ready to issue our predictions for 09, and in putting that that piece together, some very interesting things started to show up on our radar screen. First of all, we had seen in March that the numbers, March and April are very important months in the industry. That's when a lot of freight is typically moving. Well, we had seen that those numbers were soft, but then when we went into late August, early September, when you should see once again freight picking up from the June, July timeframe, we had seen that those numbers were much softer than what one would reliably predict. So we started to look at things like the data from the American Trucking Association, the ATA information. One of the other very reliable predictors is the CAS index. And when we took a look at that data, it confirmed what we were seeing, was that the freight had dropped in late August and September. So we were keeping our eye on it, Denny, which is why in late October and in November, just prior to the election and then immediately thereafter, the weeks after the election, we saw freight drop yet again. So in putting that together, one of the things that we concluded was that we are in a severe recession, which is why a couple of weeks ago I was personally kind of laughing when the newspapers came out and said that the economists now say that the recession started last year. So now as we hear the economists debating, how severe is this recession, we want to tell them there's some things that you can look at. You can look at what type of freight or the volume of freight that's moving. You can look at things like packaging indicators. So that basically is an indicator of the confidence that people have for what they're manufacturing, what they're selling. And when we took a look at those numbers, Denny, one of the things that we've said that once again has drawn some attention is that practically speaking, at least as it stands right now, we are in a severe recession. Now, somebody called me up and said, well, are you saying that that severe recession is pretty close to the, the dreaded D word? And we've said that, we're not saying the D word for a lot of different reasons. A, we just don't like how it sounds. But what we're taking a look at is that we think, the next couple of months are going to be extremely, extremely important in determining what happens with the economy overall.
Peak season never peaked.
Absolutely correct.
As we look forward, one of my clients, one of the interviews I did recently, talked about the perfect storm in transportation. In fact, they've said it's moved from a perfect storm to total chaos. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not sure if it's total chaos if you have all of the right numbers to look at so that we can plan for what we actually are seeing, what that roadmap actually says. I'm always a little concerned. We know that economists have predicted 11 of the last 3 recessions. And so we have to be a little bit focused on what it is that the economics are telling us. But you've had a track record wherein the crystal ball for you has been really very good. Not as a predictor of doom and gloom, because you've told us when it's going to be good, you've told us when it's going to be bad. There are so many factors that impact all of this. Fuel and security and now without a lot of activity, things like congestion and things like the driver shortage don't seem to be an issue, but maybe they are. Why don't you take us through some of those concerns that you have and help us into the new year as we look forward? What is it that we need to know about? What is it that we need to concentrate on? Where do we need to have our focus?